Breaker Crunchers, welcome to another mind-melting edition of Couch Crunchers, where we have to be really quiet because we don't want the monsters to get us. With me is Sam. Hey, Sam.
Hey.
Yeah, Sam is here, but Lance, he had another vasectomy, and so he's just, feeling a little sick.
Yeah, the first one didn't take.
Exactly. That first one just wasn't quite there.
They only got one ball.
Exactly. That's exactly what happened.
The doc was like, this is going to make a killer prank video.
Also, we had technical difficulties. I'm not very good at the whole... Lance has lately been doing this thing where he shares the screen and does a video, and I'm not good at it. It didn't work, so I just said, screw it. So we're here today, and we're going to be talking about A Quiet Place 2, or A Quiet Place Part 2. That's the correct name of the movie. I'm definitely excited to talk about this. I thought it was fantastic. But before we get into that, Tyler isn't here, but he's been watching One Piece. Can you give us your review, Sam, of Tyler watching One Piece?
It has been a journey. He's only wrapping up the first saga right now.
Of what, 60?
Well, so there's almost 1,000 episodes, and he's about 60 episodes in. So he's still got about 900 more to go, 940 more to go.
That's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just getting warmed up. Like it's basically prologue at this point. The adventure hasn't even really started. But he said he finally got to a part in the story that I think most people, it's like the make or break story arc of the prologue. And he got there and he said it was pretty intense. So I think he's going to give it a try. Which is great. It's great, except for right now I have to keep my mouth shut for the next year and a half while he gets caught up.
For sure. Yeah, man. Well, that's great. I'm glad that he's doing that. I know you have been talking about One Piece for a long time, and I'm glad Tyler is watching it. You and Tyler have been jiving lately. He goes to dodgeball with you. He's watching anime with you. It's awesome.
Yeah, he and my dodgeball buddy Brian, they really hit it off, and they spent a lot of time chatting as well. So Tyler's kind of been just kind of absorbed into dodgeball culture, thanks to me and Brian.
Dodgeball culture. Nice. Oh, yeah, and you're wearing a dodgeball shirt right now.
That's cool. Right. I am wearing a dodgeball shirt. I'm also playing a dodgeball video game.
Oh, you're playing Knockout City?
Knockout City. I've been playing that
as we speak?
A lot. No, not as we speak. I wish. I wish I could multitask like that, but I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I can barely push two buttons at the same time. Like managing the whole controller. Like I wish I had probably 3 more fingers on each hand because there's so many things I could do with 3 extra fingers on each hand. Like what's that dude? Steppenwolf in the Snyder Cut, how he had all those extra thumbs and the extra pinkies. Like that's the kind of hand you really need to get good at video games. Extra thumbs coming off the side, extra pinkies coming off each side. Happy hands. That's what I need for this Knockout City. And it's an incredible game. Really, really fun. Simple concept. They give you some maps. They're not really complex maps, but they're really well designed. The mechanics of the game are pretty simple, but they're also lots of fun. They're really kind of explosive and splashy, and the look of it is kind of I don't want to say cyberpunk. It's kind of like cyber bebop style, like how in the 50s, like punk rocker style, kind of greasehead style. Mm-hmm. But the cars all fly, and so it's like cyberpunk mixed with rockabilly, I want to say. Yeah, it's rockabilly cyberpunk is what it is. It's awesome. Awesome style. The music is slapping. The gameplay is awesome.
I need to check it out. I've got it. I know it was free for the first 10 days, but with a Game Pass subscription, you get the game as well. And so I can play it either on my Xbox or on my PC. I haven't jumped in yet. Tyler was like, hey, let's play. He wanted to play last week after the podcast, and I just didn't have time.
It's
And
fun.
I haven't jumped in yet. I should. I need to see if there's
Yeah,
a
if
time
you have
Tyler and I can jump on, play
if
a
you have
little
a
bit.
solid PC connection, you're going to be light years ahead of the rest of the competition. It's cross-platform, so you're playing against people on Switch and Xbox and PlayStation and PC, and definitely the guys with the high frame rate PC, that's like running on nuclear power. Those guys are kicking everybody's
Well,
butts.
I have all the nuclear power for sure. I have a very good PC, but I don't think I have the skill set. But it would give me a leg up. I won't deny that. Switch
fun.
people all play in at like 30 FPS. Anyway. What are you playing it on?
The Switch.
I didn't know you had one.
I got it this week for the game. It was the least expensive option for me to get into the game, but I have to share it with my kids. So I made it so that the kids could only get on the Switch if they would play Barbies with their youngest sister, who doesn't have any interest in the Switch.
Yeah.
So if they want to play an hour on the Switch, they have to play Barbies for half an hour with her, and she is loving that. She's like, finally, we get to play Barbies. All I want.
That's awesome.
And
I think that's a good arrangement.
My wife was like, we better keep adding games to keep everybody interested in the Barbie arrangement. Otherwise, they're going to lose interest, and then I'm going to have to play Barbies.
Oh, there's plenty of games on Switch that I'm sure your kids will like. Mario Kart, of course, Breath of the Wild.
We actually have both of those games for the Wii U, Mario Kart 8 and Breath of the Wild. So what we picked up were Minecraft, FIFA. My daughter wanted a soccer game, so she got FIFA. And then my son wanted a fighting game called Jump Heroes. I think that's what it's called. But it's basically it's all of the main characters from Shonen Jump.
Oh, cool.
So they started playing that today, and they're having a great time. They took the Switch to the other room. They're playing it right now.
Nice. That's awesome. I think that's really cool, though, the whole Barbie arrangement. Your little girl getting to play Barbies with her older brothers and sisters, and that's great. It's awesome.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah. What else? Anything else you've been watching or up to?
Just trying to get skilled enough to play Knockout City with Tyler and Brian, my dodgeball buddies. Has taken all of my free time. So I've just been playing Knockout City. I did take last night off to go see Quiet Place 2. But that's it. That's really, I mean, my wife and I did watch. Oh, you know what? We did start watching the Superman and Lois, couple episodes that came out last couple weeks. Got caught up on that. Gosh, that show it's really lighting my fire. Like I totally dig the vibe that they've put out with that. Superman, like my thing with superheroes is, they're superheroes, but they're also just people, and so they still want to have their home life, and that's really kind of where the focus of the show is. It's like, they're balancing superheroics and family life, but most of their attention is in their family life, and I was like, that's a vibe I totally dig. So really enjoying Superman and Lois. If you haven't started that, I suggest that you get into it. And then I did watch a finale of a show with my wife called Married at First Sight, and I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that or if you're into that, but it is a train wreck.
I've heard of it.
Some might say dumpster fire, and the difference in a dumpster fire versus a train wreck is entertaining, and a dumpster fire is not. And
it's hot, it stinks.
It's hot, it stinks, and there's nothing really worth watching, but it's hard to turn away. Whereas a train wreck, you're like, wow, that's going fast. There's at least some entertainment value, but it's a mess. And Married at First Sight, season 12, there was one guy on the show who was just an absolute mess. And just to give you a flavor, so he gets married to a gal. Then the next day he disappears for a couple hours, just gone. And she's like, what happened to him? And then come to find out they slept together. They had sex probably 2-3 times that night on the wedding night.
Yeah.
And then he disappears for 2 hours, not a word. When he comes back, he tells her he's got a girlfriend or an ex-girlfriend who's pregnant. He just found out that day. Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh.
And then he's telling all these people that he's such a good guy because he's going to stay married to the girl he married on the show, even though she's not attractive to him. It's like, what? He's going around telling everybody he doesn't think she's attractive, that he's more attractive than she is.
What
and
a jerk.
Just the worst person. And then the baby mama shows up on the show and tells everybody on national TV that she is not interested in getting together with this guy. She has no interest. And then he buys the baby mama, not his wife, the baby mama, a Mercedes.
What?
Buys her a Mercedes, and then finds out that, or he says that she had a miscarriage and she's not pregnant anymore.
Okay.
So all of that, and then when they get to the finale, they have to decide if they're going to stay married or get a divorced. And the wife was like, "This guy is a liar. He's a wacko. His life is a mess. I definitely don't want to stay married to him." And he's like, "Oh, that's a bummer because I did want to stay married."
Well, his backup plan wasn't working out.
Yeah, here's what I think happened. I think he came on the show, got married to this gal. He honestly was not attracted to her, slept with her anyway. Calls up his ex-girlfriend, says, "Hey, I need you to fake a pregnancy for me." Her name's Mercedes. He's like, "I'll buy you a Mercedes if you fake a pregnancy for me." And she's like, "Okay, I'll take a Mercedes." And then he's using this storyline to try and get attention. And every time he gets called out on his lies, he like has this meltdown and he storms off the show and pulls his mic off and he has a little fit. But man, he was so annoying. But he made it through the whole season. And at the very end, he has the gall to say, "Yeah, I wanted to stay married. I can't believe that she doesn't want to stay married."
What a weird show. So the premise is these people just get married when they first see each other, and then by the end of the season, they have to decide if they're getting divorced.
Yeah. So the premise is they have experts who match them with strangers, complete strangers. And then they get married, and they're married. And initially it was for 6 weeks, and now they do it 8 weeks. They used to have 3 couples, then they moved to 4 couples, and now there's 5 couples who are married for 8 weeks. And at the end of the 8 weeks, they have this kind of decision day ceremony where they sit them all down and the couples talk about the good times and the bad times and decide which one is going to win the day. You know, are they going to stay together? Are they going to get divorced? And surprisingly, 3 of the 5 couples decided they were going to stay together. Super weird. I mean, they had a horrible season. Like, most of the couples did not do well during the show, but they decided they were going to stay together.
Wow. Okay. All right. That sounds awful.
It's a hot mess, dude, but it used to be really entertaining. And so it's kind of like a legacy value or a nostalgia value where I'm looking back on past seasons that I enjoyed and hoping for some type of return
some people
to that
like
quality.
Like that reality show stuff can be really interesting. Like I enjoy reality TV, but like I like watching HGTV with my wife. There's a lot less drama. The only drama you have in that is, oh no, this wall is load bearing, so we're gonna need a $3,000 engineering beam. That really cuts into the budget.
Sure, but think about the types of drama that regular people face when they meet each other for the first time. It's like, oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, well, I have a job that travels. And oh, well, I have a job that stays home. How are we going to make that work? And that is where the drama used to come from. Just like people with different lifestyles coming together. None of them were psychopaths. None of them were weird sociopaths. They're just normal people with normal problems. And it was totally relatable. Now you have this guy who comes on and he's lying to everybody. He's setting up these enormous, elaborate plots to try and to try and deceive the woman and the cast and the production, so that he could still get paid and not have to really participate. And then the rest of the couples are like, well, I don't necessarily find my spouse attractive, or my spouse kind of talks a lot and that kind of annoys me. But then there was kind of a couple that actually had kind of a real life problem where the wife tended to drink a lot, and she may be an alcoholic.
So we got someone asking, I don't know if they're asking about A Quiet Place 2 or Married at First Sight, but Pedro in the chat is asking if it's on streaming. He says he can't find it on Prime or Google Play. If you're talking about A Quiet Place, it's only in theaters.
Only in theaters.
What about Married at First Sight? Where's that
at? Married at First Sight you can find on multiple platforms. I watch it on Lifetime, which is a cable network, but it's also available on Netflix. I think they're on Hulu as well.
Okay. So, Pedro, just so you know, if you get Paramount Plus, you can watch A Quiet Place 2 45 days from now. So, just keep that in mind. If you don't want to go to the theater, you can get Paramount Plus and watch it that way. All right. Well, I'm gonna talk a little bit about what I've been watching, because I have been getting this recommendation to watch A Handmaid's Tale quite a bit, and I finally said, fine, let me try it out. And I'm about 5 episodes into season 2. It is fantastic. It is so good.
Yeah.
You've seen it?
No,
Sam?
but I know Lance has seen it and he really likes it.
Yeah, it is engrossing, to say the least. It's also like not what I expected. I hadn't seen much on the show other than like images of the girls in the red dresses with like the bonnets on and stuff. And so I'm thinking, oh, this is like set in the 1600s. Maybe it's got like a Scarlet Letter storyline. Like that's what I was thinking. Nope. It's set in the future. Well, present day, future kind of thing. And it's like not post-apocalyptic, but it's like the United States was overthrown. And now there's this new regime where basically women are all subjugated to men, and these handmaids are basically the only people on the earth that are fertile, because most women can't have babies anymore in this world. And so these handmaids they basically get taken in as concubines to these men, and they get raped on a monthly basis to hopefully get pregnant and then give the wife of that man and the man a baby.
Right.
And it's a lot worse than that. It's like, that already sounds bad enough. Like, geez, that's oppressive. That's pretty bad. But it's so bad. Like the show is really good, but like the way they treat these women, and not just the women, but the women are treated the worst, but even the men who aren't like top ranking officials, like everyone is treated like crap. And it's just horrible. You want the villains of the show to go down so bad. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I want them to die. And in fact, I'm going to make a comment later on when we're talking about A Quiet Place 2, where I had a very similar feeling at one point during the movie. But it's very good. I'm very invested in the characters and loving it. So if you guys haven't tried A Handmaid's Tale, try it out. It's fantastically good. It's riveting television. Music is good. Acting is great. The storytelling is really well done. Pacing is very well done. I can't get enough. I've been very blessed this week to watch 2 very, very yet pieces of media in A Handmaid's Tale and A Quiet Place Part 2. Not that I would say A Quiet Place Part 2 is like a sad story, but if you saw the first A Quiet Place, it's grim. It's grim. Yeah. It's high intensity. So with that said, when it's only 2 of us, we get to move into talking about the movie faster. So I'm going to throw up the banner. We're going to be talking full spoilers here, people. But it is time to talk about A Quiet Place Part 2. Again,
let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Yes. Again, full spoilers here. The movie just came out, so if you haven't had a chance to see it, we understand. But now is your final warning before we spoil things for you. So, I remember when I heard that there. Thanks, Sam. That's funny. I remember when I heard there was going to be a sequel, and I was like, why? That movie ended in a perfect place. You don't need a sequel. It had a happy ending that it didn't resolve everything, but it tied things up real nice. And so I was good with it. I'm like, why would you do a sequel? And Lance was telling me today, I didn't realize this, that the first movie is based on a book, and this second one was all kind of it just came from John Krasinski's mind. Obviously not like every idea came from his mind, because the world is based off of a book. But I didn't realize that the first one is even a book. So this new iteration is an original tale, not something that's been told before, at least in the Quiet Place universe. And it's freaking great. And so I'll let you start first, Sam. What did you think about this movie?
Okay, so when I think about these movies, I think about the primary theme. Whenever I think about horror movies, I try to think, what is kind of like the basic human instinct that they're trying to get at, that they're trying to, attack, so that's basically where the entertainment comes from, is you're feeling some kind of instinctive drive that engrosses you in the film. And in the first movie, it was clearly the desire of every parent to keep their children alive, right? In the very first moments of that movie, you have one of the monsters swoop in and take their youngest son and kill him, right? And
which was shocking.
Very shocking.
Movies put kids in danger a lot. They don't typically allow the kid to die.
Yeah.
And this one did, like in the first 10 minutes.
It was like in the very first kind of splash moment, no pun intended, but
yeah.
It kind of set the tone, right? I remember watching that one in the theater, and when that happened, all of the popcorn chewing, all of the wrapper rustling, all of the drink slurping, it came to an end, and everyone was holding their breath for the next hour and a half. It was so intense. And I thought, okay, well, how do they recapture or really evolve the themes now that John Krasinski's character has been killed? And I loved the direction they took from this, because it's like, as a parent, one of the things that scares you is watching your kids grow up to take risks and hoping that they're going to make it through the risks that they take. And it's the natural evolution from, I got to protect my kids, to, oh my gosh, how do I trust my kids to take these risks on their own? And it was this perfect evolution from the themes of the first one to the themes of the second one. And it was riveting. It was terrifying, but it's also inspiring and moving. I mean, right before, so there's a scene where the oldest daughter, who's deaf, and Cillian Murphy's character, I think Emmett is his name, they make it to this kind of safe haven, and we get this kind of moment of peace before things get crazy again. But in this moment of peace, we kind of look out and we see that kids can take on the world at a certain point. They need to go out and take it one step at a time, one little bit at a time, but then eventually we're going to have to hand the world back to them or over to them to take care of. And that was kind of that moment, and I was like, I was really moved in that moment. As a dad myself, I have a lot of kids, and my older kids are now teenagers, and I'm watching them grow up, and they're getting phones and they're getting jobs, and it's scary. It's kind of scary sometimes. But watching this movie, it was like not only was it scary, but it also gave me a big dose of hope that, you know what? Yeah, these risks, they're scary, but they pay off. And you will find success. You just got to let those kids do it. And so the themes were really moving to me. That was a lot of, it's like pitch perfect. Now maybe the story has some minor inconsistencies here, or there's little choices that don't make a lot of sense, but the themes are pitch perfect, and they strike accord with anybody who's a parent for sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure other people will also get into it too, because there's a lot of, kind of the cheap thrills, the jump scares, and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But those parental themes are really what kind of sets this apart from, a typical monster movie fare where it's just like jumping out and rah, it's gotcha. But
I think it's just really good at like, I do agree. I think the parental themes are the strongest, and maybe that's my perspective as a father. But I think in general, just the family theme is what's driving the whole thing. Because like, let's say you're a 14-year-old kid. Obviously, you're not a parent, but you're looking at the relationship between this brother and sister, and you can relate to that too. Or the baby and the brother, like that kind of stuff. So I just think it does a really good job of having an appeal towards an audience of like any age. Obviously someone who's in their 60s who maybe doesn't have their kids at home anymore, they can relate to what it was like before. Someone like us who's in their 30s who has kids these ages, we're relating at a different level. And then those teenagers are maybe looking at it at a different level as well. They just did so great with it. So I'm agreeing with you. I just wanted to chime in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the themes were rocking my world. I really enjoyed that. But then also the structure of the movie, very simple. I would say it's almost by the book. But in the first movie, you have kind of this hunkering down, right? It's like, we're going to survive in this little house. We're going to hunker down. We're going to protect our castle. And this movie is not like that. So this movie is more of an odyssey almost. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not a long movie. It's about an hour and 35 minutes.
Yeah, I think runtime was an hour 37, and the first one was only an hour 30. They're both short.
They're short. So
you can watch both movies in the same amount of time it takes you to watch Endgame.
Yeah, so it's not exactly an epic. I wouldn't say it's an epic, but there is definitely a movement from kind of a static point at the static farm that they were protecting in the first movie, and then they immediately start marching away from that, and then they kind of split up into three groups, and then two of those groups kind of come back together, and then more symbolically, but through the radio signal, they kind of all three groups eventually reunite at the end in the same battle, essentially. And so structurally,
they don't reunite in the same location, which I found to be a clear indicator that they're planning a part 3.
Yeah. But I really liked the structure of the movie too, the way that it was like, when the daughter is, sorry, I'll use this one. The daughter's walking on the tracks. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this makes perfect sense. It's going to be kind of like a Gulliver's Travels or like an Odyssey type, where she goes from place to place to see. And she did. She went 3 different places, right? She went to the train station, and then the boat, the marina, and then the island. And at each place, she met somebody who was dealing with this problem of the end of the world in their own way, and each to their own different levels of success. And then she takes another route. So the first guy that she meets is Cillian Murphy's Emmett. Meets him at the train station, and his approach had been, let's hide. We need to stay hidden. We need to hunker down. We need to hide and just wait for a natural death to go, because it's less scary than the death that these monsters offer. And she says, no, I'm not going to do that. I need to move forward. I need to solve this problem my way. And then Cillian Murphy gets convinced. And so he walks with her to the, through this train track, and they get to this boatyard, this marina. Uh-huh. And the people there are the people that Cillian Murphy talks about early in the movie, where he says, the people who are left are not the type of people worth saving. And they looked like monsters themselves. Their eyes are all bloodshot. Their skin is all bumpy and kind of gross. Their clothes were nasty, and they were violent, and they set booby traps for them, and certainly did not they looked like they were either gonna, enslave them or kill them and eat them. That's what it looked like to me. They looked like cannibals or just awful people, really.
Their intentions clearly weren't good.
Yeah, it wasn't like, hey, let's all band together. Let's get this thing done. That certainly wasn't it. And so you see them, they through some efforts, I'll say, that called back to earlier parts of the movie really nice. They escape and they find their way to yet a third group of people who are dealing with things in a different way, which is isolation. They had escaped and they were isolating and hoping that people would find their way to them. But even that really wasn't secure.
And they were very welcoming and trusting.
Yeah, they were very welcome, very trusting. And
the other group of people, not at all.
Not at all.
We're going to kill you. We're going to treat you horribly. Which I would imagine in a post-apocalyptic world like that, you want to be maybe somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle.
Be cautious about your fellow beings.
So the island folks were all lotus eaters, just totally chill. It's like, hey, we're having a good time. There's no danger here. And so they kind of let their guard down and bad things happen. And the oldest daughter, she finds a different way. She says, look, we're going to face these things head on. I have the tools. I have the know-how, and I'm going to win. And she puts together a plan. She executes it, and she does it. And that's a really neat thing to watch, is this progression through this kind of isolation to complete hostility to complete naivete, I'd almost say. And then she finds this way to solve the problem herself by kind of finding a middle ground of all of them. And it was a really cool structure for the story and a really neat progression from the initial movie. It wasn't, in my opinion, it was very different structurally from A Quiet Place Part 1. And
yeah, I think I'd agree with that.
Like, they didn't feed us the same movie again. But at the same time, it was a perfect evolution, kind of growing out of the themes and the structure of the first movie. The stakes were still really high. The tension was still there. The performances, I think the strongest performances were from the oldest daughter and the oldest son, the teenagers. The adults.
Yeah, I think the oldest daughter, her name it's either Reagan or Regan. It's Regan.
You're right.
Was it Reagan?
Reagan, I think.
I don't feel like they say it ever.
No,
because the boy's name is Marcus, which they might say that more. But anyways, yeah, her performance, the actress is Millicent Simmons. She's incredible.
She did such a good job.
She was in the first one, and she was again here. And so was Noah Jupe, who plays Marcus Abbott, the brother. They both were incredible. I would argue that, and unless I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly, Cillian Murphy. I've been saying Killian. It is Killian?
Yeah.
That doesn't follow proper grammar rules. But all right, Cillian Murphy with a C was absolutely amazing as well. And then Emily Blunt, ironically, I would say was probably the worst performance. And that doesn't mean it was bad, but of like the main cast, she was probably the least impactful performance for me. But again, she was really good. So I absolutely loved these performances. Cillian Murphy took a while Killian, sorry. So Emmett took a while. It took a while for me to warm up to the character Emmett. He started off being very untrusting, kind of like I was describing you should be in a post-apocalyptic world. Even if you know these people, be a little standoffish. Don't necessarily trust them right away. But he kind of was a jerk at first. Get out of here. I don't want you here. And he had just lost his wife 11 weeks ago. His kids were killed, I think he said, immediately when things went down, day one. And so he's dealing with depression and anger and isolation. And he wasn't overly nice. But then Emily Blunt's character, Evelyn, convinces him to go out and get Reagan. And his character evolves from there. And I always love to see character progression. I think that's something that they did a good job, even though we only had an hour and 30 minutes, before credits. We didn't have a ton of time to spend, but I came to care for Emmett a lot, to where at the end of the movie, when they're going into the radio station and about to attempt to save the day, and he almost gets killed, I was like, don't you dare kill him. You already killed the other Jim. I know the character's name isn't Jim, but John Krasinski is always Jim to me, even if he does great in other roles. Like, so, Cillian Murphy's character Emmett became, Krasinski's character. He filled the same role. They're different people, but he filled that same role. I'm like, don't you dare take the father figure away again. And they didn't, luckily. But I just love when an hour and a half can invest you in characters so much. The first movie, I rewatched it a week ago, and I was in tears like multiple times because it's so well done. So well done. And I'm just like, there's barely any dialogue because they're trying to be quiet all the time. But yet, I care about these two kids and John Krasinski and Emily Blunt's characters so much that it's like crazy with very little screen time. And they did it again here with Cillian Murphy's character, Emmett. We don't get a lot from him. We see him day one. We get to know him a little bit at that baseball game that was going down. We get to see that he was a nice guy. He was friends with the Abbott family. But then the next time we see him, he's a jerk. I think it was a year and a half later, like 471 days. So yeah, about a year and a half-ish later. And he's changed, and he's more grizzled and not trusting. But then he becomes that man that we saw on day one kind of throughout the movie, and he grows and progresses. As you may be able to tell, Emmett was like one of my favorite parts of the movie. His character really resonated with me. The first movie, Reagan, is what resonated with me the most. And she was probably... she was about neck and neck with Emmett this time around too, but both of those characters were so good. But in the first movie, I have a sister who's deaf. She can hear with a hearing aid though, so not as severe as Reagan. And the actress is hearing impaired as well. But so like she resonated with me, and so I thought it was really cool that the family already knew sign language, and that the hero of the day was because of her hearing aid, and because she's clever. Like, it's not just that she has a hearing aid. That girl's clever. She saved the day at the end of A Quiet Place 1, and she saved the day again at the end of A Quiet Place Part 2. She's a freaking bad A. And I don't know how old the character's supposed to be. I'm guessing 13, 14. Like, not old. She's bad A. I love her.
Yeah, she not only was clever, but she's also brave. And
very.
And that was, gosh, I'm going to get choked up just thinking about it. But there was a lot of that movie that was just like really, really cool. And it's only the kind of things that, I don't know how much horror movies you watch, but for me, there's just this kind of catharsis that comes from watching people overcome the worst things ever. And then they use that strength to overcome their own personal struggles. And in this one, it was kind of the other way around. Like, she's using her personal struggles to help other people. And it was just a really, really cool way to take the story. I thought it was just an excellent pairing to the first movie. And the third movie, who knows what that's going to look like. But if there is going to be a third one, I hope there is.
I imagine there will be. I don't know. Was your theater packed? Because mine was. Mine
was not packed. I had probably a dozen people in my theater, and there was this one guy who was just working on a loogie the whole time. Wow. So anytime things would get kind of quiet and tense, he'd just stare. I was like, come on, man, just get it out. Rude. Get it out so we can move on.
I wouldn't like that. That's surprising to me that it was not very busy. Yeah, okay, so I had a funny experience. I'm going to tell this real quick with the movie. So my original plan was to go to a 7 o'clock showing. My buddy and I were going to go, who's been on the show before, Ben. He helped us review Rise of Skywalker. He and I were going to go to the movie at 7. Well, we then decided to push the time back to 7:50. And so I canceled my 7 o'clock tickets. I buy the 7:50 tickets. And then we show up at the theater yesterday. And we're looking for the theater that says 7:50 showtime. And there isn't one. There is an 8 o'clock, but there's no 750. And I look at my tickets, and I freaking bought for the Gilbert Theater instead of the Queen Creek location.
Oh no!
So I quickly had to scramble and hope that there were going to be good seats in the 8 o'clock, because at this point it was like 7:45. And luckily there was. So we were able to find like the only 2 decent seats left, and it worked out. And I was able to cancel the other tickets and get refunded. So whatever, at the end of the day, not a big deal. But I just thought that was kind of a funny experience getting to see this movie. I was going to be pretty bummed if I didn't get to see it. I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have had to just go before the podcast at like a 4 o'clock showtime or something. But it worked out. Saw it last night. Fat Cats in Queen Creek is brand new and open, but there was, when I went to book, it said 61% full. And by the time the theater, like the movie started 15 minutes later, it seemed like it was 80% full. Every seat in the upper section was taken. All the handicap section right there was taken. And even like most of the front 2 rows was taken. So Lance said the same thing, but he went to the same theater as me. So it could just be that Fat Cats has only been open for like 3 weeks, so it's like extra popular. But I hope that there's a sequel. And based on the anecdotal evidence of Lance and I going to the exact same theater at different showtimes, it was very busy. So busy, in fact, that Fat Cats, if you guys aren't familiar here in Arizona, they're like Alamo Drafthouse and some others who you can order your food and they'll bring it to your seat. And my buddy and I came hungry with the intent to eat at the movie, and so we didn't eat dinner. Well, they had a 2-hour wait to get your food because it was so packed at this place.
That's
and
a
so
long time.
Well, yeah, when the movie's an hour and 37 minutes, it wasn't even worth it. Like, by the time you bring me my food, the movie's over. That's not going to work. So I just, ate popcorn, and then we went and got some Mexican food after. But anyway, that was a digression. But yeah, so we'll get back into the movie now. But I wanted to touch on something, because earlier on I mentioned I was going to say something about this, and it's about the Marina scene. So something interesting happened to me. You hate the monsters in this, right? Like, they're just these ruthless killers, and they're terrifying. You hate them. At least I did. Well, we get to the Marina scene, and now all of these scavengers, whatever you want to call them, are trying to kidnap Reagan, and they're trying to basically kill Emmett. And I was just like, screw you guys. You're horrible people. And of course, they almost cut the cord to the hearing aids. So there was tension there. And I'm just like, please get out of this. Like, I was worried Emmett was going to die. I didn't think Reagan would, but it was tense. And then Emmett, like a freaking bad A, takes the trap that was set on him and pulls one of the scavengers in, holds him up to his chest, stabs him in the leg, and then I'm seeing the monsters take out all of these scavengers, is what I'm going to call them, and I was like cheering. I'm like, yes, thank you, monsters. I never thought I would root so hard for the bad guys as I did in that moment. It was like this moment of relief. And that's something that just in general, the movie, I think, did a very good job at. Like, in a comedy, you can't have laughs every moment, right? So for pacing reasons, you got to slow down sometimes and have some moments that aren't quite as funny. And then you get back into the laughs, and then you get down into some more quiet moments that, change the pace up. That's exactly what this movie was, except for with high intensity, like anxiety inducing tension.
Yeah.
and I loved it.
That's why it's not very long. It's an hour and a half, because you don't want to see the same jump scares over and over again. You want to get those impactful moments, and then you want to move on. But yeah, what you're talking about with the monsters, I call that turtle shelling, based on Mario Brothers. It's where you jump on the turtle shell, and then the turtle gets spit out, and then you can use the turtle shell as a weapon. It's still dangerous to you, so you need to respect it. But now it's in your hands; you can use it as a weapon too. Yeah, and movies do that a lot, where something that appears as a danger to the main characters early in the film, they learn the rules of it, they learn how to manipulate it, and then it becomes their tool later on. So turtle shelling is what I always call that, but you can call it whatever you like.
I like that. Well, Lance brought up a good point about it too, because he and I were together earlier today before he started feeling less good, and he was talking about how great he thought the writing was in this movie, and I agree. But one of the things he mentioned was how when Cillian Murphy grabbed that guy and started to call the monsters in, he knowingly took his knife and stabbed it into the other guy's leg, knowing that when he jumped into the water, he wasn't going to have a knife anymore to cut the noose that was around his neck. And so it just added to that additional tension. Like, these characters were constantly in more and more danger. And you've mentioned this before, Sam, and I've come to pay attention to it more since you've pointed this out, so I appreciate you. Talk about how in a good film, there's going to be a plan, and then everything that can go wrong is going to go wrong.
Yep.
And that's what A Quiet Place Part 2 was. Every time I was like, all right, they're going to get out of this. Nope, something else went wrong. And of course, at the end of the day, they did get out of things. But, they're at the marina, it's tense, and then they get, stormed by these scavengers. Then Cillian Murphy has to get rid of his knife and jump into the water, and he starts to suffocate. Or later on in the movie, you've got the young boy who went into the what do you want to call that? The quiet air, the bear trap. Well, that too. That was earlier in the movie.
Oh, the furnace. You talking in the furnace?
Thank you. When they go into the furnace with the baby to hide, but he forgets to put the cloth in front of it to make sure it doesn't lock. And the oxygen there isn't enough oxygen, so they're running out of oxygen. There's a baby. There's a young teenage adolescent boy in there, and you're rooting for them. You don't want them to die. Who the heck wants to see a baby die in a movie? Which, I mean, anyone that knows anything, babies very rarely die in movies because that's pretty poor taste. I've seen it happen one time, and I was like pretty pissed about it.
It's so awful.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, unless they die off
those
screen.
movies.
Unless they die off screen. I saw a movie where the bad guys threw a baby through a stake, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that's too far. That was just too far. Anyway, that was horrible. But they had these moments of absolute tension that I thought were really, really good. And they had me on the edge of my seat, and things just kept going wrong. And, Emily Blunt comes back to rescue her boy, and the monster's there. And so she uses the second air tank to start a fire. That doesn't kill it, but I don't think that was her intent. She's smart. She knew it would set off the sprinklers, and it did, which caused, some distraction. And I was thinking, okay, we're good. She caused some distraction. They're being quiet. No big deal. Nope. Then the monster comes back, finds them, and starts getting into the furnace to get them. So that moment at the end where you've got Emily Blunt and her two kids in the furnace, and then you've got Reagan and Emmett at the radio station, like simultaneously going through the same thing. I was just like, I knew what was going to happen because Marcus had the headphones on. I'm like, okay, so clearly he's going to notice, and they're going to be able to get out of this. But it was still freaking tense. You didn't know what was going to happen.
So I want to amend my statement about plans.
Okay.
Because I have noticed a clear distinction in the plans that are made by men in movies and the plans that are made by women in movies.
Yeah, you said this before. I don't know that we need to go over this before again.
Well, in this movie, you saw both working at the same time. So in movies where men make the plans fall apart almost immediately. And then the men are struggling to adapt, but they always wing it and they make it work. Okay. Because that's how men are. And that's kind of where we get our tension, right? That's where we get excited, is when things start to go awry, and then we got to step in and handle things. With the women, on the other hand, their tension is in that the plan could fall apart, and so they have to do everything to make sure that the plan stays on course. And so you have two women and two men, each with their own plans. The women's plans went off without a hitch. The men's plans fell apart immediately. And so I'll give you what I'm talking about. So Emmett's plan was to go get Reagan and bring her back, bring her home. That was the plan. He goes and he meets her and immediately abandons that plan. He makes a new plan to get her to the boats and then get her to the radio station. He gets her to the boats. There's people there. They're trying to kill him. He gets captured. He has to figure a way out of that. And then, she's the one who ends up saving him, pulls him into the boat. They float on. But because of his actions, he brings the monsters to the island where she had planned to go. Yep. So he's at every step, he's kind of screwing things up.
Yeah.
Marcus, the same way. His plan is to keep everybody together. Everybody immediately leaves him. And then I'll just sorry. My daughter just burst in.
You're good.
So his plan is keep everybody together. Everybody leaves him alone with the baby. He doesn't want to be with the baby, but he's stuck with the baby. So now that he's with the baby, his plan is to put the oxygen on the baby, and then he's going to go gallivant. Well, his leg is busted.
Yeah, those
so
are pretty stupid decision.
Can't really gallivant. This is the one part of the movie that really frustrated me, is that he would even leave the safety. But he immediately causes a ruckus because he gets scared and then draws the monster in, right? Emily Blunt, the mom, Evelyn, I forget what their last name is, but
Abbott.
Evelyn Abbott. Her plan is, I got to get my kids out of this house. I got to find somebody that can help us. She does. Okay. Marcus's foot gets caught in a trap. She gets him free of the trap. She takes him in. She's like, okay, well, I've got to clean the wound, dress the wound. She does. She goes, she's like, I got to get medicine. She goes, finds medicine. She comes back. Things are crazy. It's just like at every step of the way, she's doing exactly what she wants. But it still is really tense because you're like, gosh, is she going to make it? Is she going to make it? And then, of course, you have Reagan, whose plan is, I'm going to take my device, my sound device, and I'm going to find the signal, and I'm going to broadcast it, and we're going to kill these monsters. And she does exactly that. But it's super tense. So that's the thing. It's like plans made by men immediately fall apart. Plans made by women are ironclad, but they're still equally tense watching them play out.
Interesting observation. Yeah, you bring up that bear trap moment. Gosh, that had me freaking give me a heart attack.
I know.
He was screaming so loud. I'm like, you're all gonna die. Shut up. Shut up.
Yeah, that was.
But, I mean, I can only imagine if I got my leg caught in a bear trap, I'm sure I wouldn't be able to keep my mouth shut either. Like, I can't even imagine how much that hurts. I have to go to the doctor for the stupid abscess that I had on my neck. I had to go earlier this week. He pushed so hard I couldn't talk through it. Yeah, that hurt, but it doesn't hurt so bad that I couldn't be quiet. I can only imagine getting freaking clamped with a bear trap. I thought his leg, I thought he was going to be hurt more than that. I think it was plot convenience that he wasn't, but I can't imagine a kid would have gotten through that without like needing his leg cut off in a post-apocalyptic world like that. But then again, the story kind of unfolds only over like a 2 or 3 day period. So who knows? Maybe part 3, he will have to have his leg chopped off.
Wow, that's pretty bleak. I hope not.
I hope not too. I'm okay with plot convenience in that regard. I'm just thinking to myself, I don't know. Emily Blunt got him antibiotics. Maybe he's fine. I'm not a doctor. I'm probably wrong about it. Those bear traps are strong. They're supposed to trap a bear. I feel like it would have sheared his foot clear off. Well,
the other thing was that it had a gap. It had a gap in it. So I think she said it didn't go all the way down to the bone. I think that was the gap made it so that there was a little bit room left, that it didn't go all the way to the bone.
Yeah, that's what I'm calling the plot convenience. They made sure to explain why it didn't cause more damage. It's fine. I'm that's really nitpicky. It didn't really bother me. It was just like a thing that I thought about and kind of laughed to myself. What else? I'm trying to think what else I wanted to talk about with this movie, because I've kind of brought up some of the main points I had already. Is there anything else? I feel like we've analyzed
pretty much covered it. The sound, I guess the sound design is really important in these movies, because they kind of clue you in as to who you're following. Like every time the deaf daughter is the eyes or the perspective, the sound goes away.
Yeah,
and that's really important.
I liked that at the beginning when she's in the truck with her dad, and you get her perspective. She has no idea anything's going on. She can't hear anything.
Right. So I think sound design is another thing that we can kind of briefly mention, but it's really important. When you go, make sure that you're holding your breath the entire time.
It wasn't
Don't
as
be.
bad as the first one.
The first
I
one,
felt like I couldn't eat my popcorn.
you couldn't make a sound. You could not make a sound. This one, it wasn't as bad. There was kind of a riff that they had. It reminded me of a pop song, but I can't remember it now. But there was this kind of like little riff that they kept playing when it was okay to breathe, and it was very reminiscent of a pop song that I've heard recently. But the silent parts are the ones where you kind of you open your eyes wide and pay attention. And then
they had more ambient noise this time, I noticed.
mm-hmm.
Especially in the first scene of the original movie, they didn't have any ambient noise that would have potentially been occurring there, so that it would be quiet.
It was like an ASMR video almost,
Yeah,
where
you heard a little bit of.
You're hearing the sound crunch, or the sand, not the sound, the sand crunch under their feet, just barely.
Yeah.
And then every little step that made, above a couple decibels of sound, you're like, oh gosh, what's going to happen? And then in comes the monster. And the thing about these monsters that does kind of bug me, but maybe it bugs me less than it used to, is that what are they killing for? Like, what's the point of the killing?
Yeah, there's no motivation.
Like, are they
aliens? It looks like they might be.
It doesn't seem like they're hungry because they never stop to eat anything. They're just death machines. They're like, destroying angels just sent to Earth to wipe everybody out.
This time around, and you don't play The Last of Us, but this time around, as I was watching it, I was like, holy crap, they're just like the clickers in The Last of Us. And they look like them, except for the clickers only have two arms and legs. So they're not crawling around with sharp whatevers. But the head is very similar. It's this idea of it opens up in multiple directions, and they scream and run at you, and they can't see. They're blind. They can only hear you, and they react to loud sound, and they chase that sound down. So it's very similar to The Last of Us. And it also reminded me, because when you shoot a clicker in the head, it looks very similar to when you shoot one of those monsters in the head. So I thought that was a fun parallel for me. So
the first movie came out like right at the tail end of one of the Stranger Things seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so I dubbed the monster the Earmagorgon. That's what I call
wrong.
it. Earmagorgon.
It's got Demogorgon vibes too, for sure. It's like a cross between the two for me. It's a clicker and a Demogorgon mixed.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and rate it. I'll start with you, Sam. And I also want to hear. I want to hear your rating, but I also want to know: did you like it better than the original, or is the original better?
Well, I'll start with that question. So it's hard for me to say. I was just so satisfied that they didn't give me the same movie, right? A lot of movies suffer from dieharditis, where they misunderstand what people really enjoy about the movie, and so they just go bigger and flashier, and eventually, instead of Bruce Willis walking barefoot through broken glass, he's driving cars into helicopters. Fast and Furious is the same thing. They misunderstand what it is that people really enjoy, and they kind of fetishize certain gimmicks or certain tropes to the point of ridiculousness, right? You have Vin Diesel out there going family all the time. He says it in every trailer. It's all about family. And then yeah, exactly. Every Fast and Furious movie, the stunts just get more and more outrageous. And this one, I feel like they didn't just go quieter and more monsters and more seclusion. I feel like they took it in a progression that was natural, that didn't feel forced. It felt so organic and just perfect. Like, it was so satisfying to watch it and it not be Die Harditis, right? It's not Die Hard 2. It's its own thing. It has its own story to tell and its own structure that's different from the first one. and its own theme that resonates in its own way in the same kind of environment. So I really, really liked it. And compared to the first one, it was a perfect natural outgrowth. So I did really, really enjoy the first one. And I think I really, really enjoyed this one just a little bit more because it wasn't just more flashier version of the first one. Yeah, I did give high praise to the first one when it came out, but I like this one a little bit better. I don't think I got misty-eyed in the first one, but I definitely got misty-eyed in this one. Like it just hit a little bit different, you know?
Okay. Nice. So what's your rating? What's your score?
4 out of 5 couch cushions. I definitely want to see this one again. It's so good.
Nice. All right. Well, I liked the first one a little bit better. Not by a lot. Just a little bit. But talking about misty-eyed, when I watched the first one again this past Saturday, there were like 5 or 6 times that I got misty-eyed. And in this one, maybe once or twice, which is still impressive. Not every movie gets me to do that. And not that that's like my only judgment of a movie is whether or not it like, gets an emotional reaction out of me like that. But I do enjoy the first one just a little bit better. And I'm not going to lie, a lot of that has to do with John Krasinski. I love him. He got, he wasn't in this one because he died in the first movie. I mean, he was in it because they had a flashback sequence, but right at the beginning of the movie. But other than that, he wasn't in it. So they're both outstanding. It's like if I were to say which one's better, it's like A Quiet Place 2 here, the original Quiet Place, like right here. And if you're listening only, my fingers are like just touching each other. One's barely above the other. So anyway, I'm going to give A Quiet Place 2 a 4 out of 5 and a throw pillow. I gave the original Quiet Place a 5 out of 5 last week when I put up a little review on the Couch Crunchers social media. So that's where I'm at. 4 out of 5 and a throw pillow.
There you go. That's a 4.5 for you,
Yes,
newbies.
sir.
It's a very good movie. So if you are looking for something to watch this Memorial Day weekend between trips to the swimming pool, do yourself a favor. Head down to your local theater. Put on a mask for a little bit. Buy your popcorn. Take your mask off. Watch A Quiet Place 2. It's so fun. It's just a great movie experience. And in a year where movie studios are basically phoning it in, this one really brings the heart. It's bringing quality entertainment. So it should be rewarded.
Easily the best movie of 2021 that I've seen. Easily.
Yeah. I mean, 2021 movies make Ad Astra look like a masterpiece.
Ad Astra is a masterpiece. But
it's not either. It's so boring.
It's not a masterpiece.
So boring.
It's not a masterpiece, but I did really enjoy Ad Astra. I think I gave that one a 4.
The only part of Ad Astra worth watching was the Moon Pirates scene.
That was like one of my least favorite scenes in the movie.
That was the best one. But anyway.
All right, well, so let's move on to Fabriflub real quick. I don't know if you have anything you want to bring up. I only had one, and I'll throw it up on the screen right here. Amazon bought MGM. I don't know if you heard about that. So Amazon now owns James Bond.
James Bond.
And technically they own, I don't think they own Handmaid's Tale, but Handmaid's Tale is a MGM and Hulu production. So Amazon has some degree of stake in it now. I don't imagine that means it's going to move to Prime. I'm sure it'll be a Hulu original still, but who knows? Maybe not. I don't know. Because Disney owns Hulu basically at this point. Anyway, what do you think about this news?
I feel like we're in an age of media conglomeration where all of these studios are getting bought up, and perhaps it's just a sign of the times, but eventually they're all going to be called Taco Bell. That's a reference to a movie called Demolition Man, which many of you probably don't remember, but there was a what they call the restaurant wars, and in the end, Taco Bell bought all of the restaurant chains. So every restaurant is now called Taco Bell, or eventually becomes Taco Bell. And right now we have, real big players out there, Disney and Amazon, who are just buying up studio after studio, and eventually they're all going to be mushed into one. And hopefully we can have some independence out there that still exists, that people are still pushing ideas forward, and that it's not just about moving money from us folks to these big studios for the price of some mindless entertainment for a couple hours. I still want to see people pushing the envelope, finding new ways to tell stories like John Krasinski's doing with A Quiet Place 2. So I'm not super thrilled that Amazon was the one that bought MGM. I would have preferred somebody else, but this is a sign of the times. Studios are struggling to make money because of the COVID lockdowns and theaters being shut down, and everything's going to streaming, and so it's tough. It's tough, and these things are just going to happen, and it is what it is. So I'm not super thrilled.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. MGM was already pretty big. I mean, that's the James Bond franchise and many more. So I don't know. Amazon owns enough. So I'm not overly excited. I don't see what benefit we as consumers are going to get. I mean, maybe it means that more MGM movies are going to be on Amazon Prime, I guess. That might be what it is, but it just feels like, kind of the same idea like you're saying. All these media conglomerates are buying up everything. I mean, Disney owns a crazy amount. And I like what they've done. Like, I don't like the sequel trilogy of Star Wars, but I like what they've done with Star Wars otherwise. I like what they've done with Marvel. I think the MCU is really good. But then you've got Amazon buying MGM. How is that helpful? And then we also had the Discovery, I guess, is buying out Warner Brothers, like the Warner's media portion of it. That was weird. I heard that one this past week or two. I don't know. I just don't. I don't understand what it's going to be. I've got the Discovery Plus app. If all of a sudden they've got Game of Thrones on Discovery Plus, that'll just be weird. I don't imagine that's what's going to happen. But I don't know. I don't like all the consolidation as much.
Oh, here's one for you. Did you see the Eternals trailer drop?
I did, but I haven't had a chance to watch it, surprisingly enough.
Well, let's just watch it right now, unless you're afraid we're going to get.
Let's do a live react.
Strike. Yeah,
we might. If as long as we talk over it, it's not a problem. Eternals.
And you can keep the sound down, but it might be interesting for you. Maybe you'll have a different take from me. I don't know.
Yeah, let's see. Let's share the screen. Share some audio. All right, let's do this.
Okay, so we've got some ocean.
The audio is coming through for you, right?
Yeah. We got some old world looking people.
So that water sound is just thrilling.
Got some.
I don't know much about the comic book stuff or Eternals, so
okay. We got a big flying tray.
Big flying tray.
It's like a big marble countertop just flying through the air. Got some beautiful people
Stark.
in our marble spaceship.
Angelina Blondie.
Salma Hayek. Yes. We've got some close-up juggling magic. Oh, man. I just love walking through crops. Oh, how about some water?
It looks like they're just giving us a brief introduction to all these characters.
We have helped them progress.
I don't know anything about these characters, though.
They're basically old gods.
That's right. Angelina Jolie, they made her look pretty young here.
We have never interfered.
We've never interfered. That's kind of the thing. But now they're like, maybe we should. I mean, I guess Thanos killing everybody is probably a good reason to
to
kind of step in. Yeah, that was Kit Harington. Kit Harington plays Black Knight.
Is that it?
That's basically it, man.
Oh,
Got a few more
Might be a
seconds.
little
Oh, they've got
stinger.
some kind of splash jokes here.
Thank you for this. Oh, you're welcome.
So now that Captain Rogers and Iron Man are both gone, who do you think's gonna lead the Avengers?
I could lead them.
Okay,
Alright.
so what's
I guess his
ironic
character
about
isn't a
that?
good leader.
What's ironic about that is that he doesn't lead the Avengers. Kit Harington's character in the comics does lead the Avengers. Black Knight is who Kit Harington is going to play. So
they're laughing about it, but his character in the comics does lead the Avengers.
well, that's not Kit Harington. That's
Was that
another
not Kit
character.
Harington?
No, Kit Harington is Jon Snow from Game of Thrones.
Oh, that was Rob Stark. Sorry, they're brothers in Game of Thrones. So I got them mixed up for a second. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
What'd you
I
think? What'd
might-
you think of that?
I didn't think it was very exciting. I
I didn't either. I didn't think it was very exciting yet.
I heard
So I-
online that it was like this great trailer. Maybe it's because we were commentating over it, so we don't get a copyright strike. But it wasn't very interesting to me. It didn't.
It
show me
seemed
much.
very dull to me. It's like, hey, we're beautiful. Look at us do beautiful things. And then we're going to get together for Thanksgiving one time and talk about the Avengers. I don't know. It doesn't
Yeah,
seem,
just-
it
Didn't tell
seems
us
like a
anything.
flub to me.
Yeah, as far as trailers go, I'd call it a flub. I forgot about that. I saw the trailer come out. I was busy working, and then just forgot. It shows you how, like, Marvel's awesome and all, but I'm not overly interested in the Eternals.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the same way about Guardians of the Galaxy, and then it came out and it was dynamite.
For sure.
That's
and
I
that's what I'm
could be
hoping
wrong.
for here. Yeah.
I could be wrong. They do have a character named Gilgamesh. And I like that name. So my brother, my older brother had a son about the same right before I was going to have a son. And when I asked him what he named his son, he says, we named him something that would call to mind an ancient warrior, a powerful man. And I was like, yeah, Gilgamesh. And he's like, what? No, Roman. I was like, oh, you almost had it. So until my nephew turned like 5, I called him Gil, short for Gilgamesh, even though his name was Roman.
Did his parents like that, or did that annoy them?
They thought it was funny, but they were like, you can stop with the joke already. We get it.
Nice.
Gilgamesh was mentioned in that episode of Star Trek where Captain Picard just talks memes with this alien for an hour. Do you remember that one? Did you ever watch that one? Star Trek
No,
Next Generation?
I didn't watch it much.
There's this episode where Captain Picard gets stuck on this planet with an alien who only talks in memes. He says things like,
memes didn't exist. I'm confused.
yeah, so I'll tell you. So he says, Darmok Enchilada Tanagra. And it's a meme that only his race understands. And so he has to explain the meme. And then when Captain Picard realizes that he's talking in memes, he starts talking memes back. And the memes that he talks is the Epic of Gilgamesh. And he tells the story of Gilgamesh. And at the end of the episode, Picard and this alien are talking Gilgamesh memes. And it's like, dude, memes. Star Trek Next Generation invented flip phones, 3D printing, and memes.
There you go. They did good. Inventing memes. Nice.
Anyway.
Well, anything else? Any other news that you wanted to bring up?
No, not really.
Cool.
I mean, the Oscar Isaac thing, I feel like that's not really news. But
Yeah.
Disney confirmed that Oscar Isaac is going to be Moon Knight.
Yeah,
We already knew that. Thought that was already confirmed.
Yeah, I guess it wasn't confirmed, but now it is. So I'm excited about that. I think it's going to be good.
Neat.
There you go. All right. Well, that'll do it for us tonight on the Couch Crunchers podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on social media for some funny memes. Speaking of memes, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, And you will see our posts of funny things and my short form reviews occasionally of movies at Couch Crunchers. And so until next time, keep